Latest news as we go live on two channels, Sarah Dardesha and Lessons for Life. Here we go. The Epstein files are out. I thought the Epstein files were a conspiracy theory, weren't they? Once upon a time, talk of Jeffrey Epstein was considered to be a conspiracy theory. Let's listen to the great conspiracy theorist himself, Alex Jones. What does he make of all this?
I've been watching Harrison live tonight. He's doing a great job getting through all these incredible Epstein files. And I saw him at the start of the show make the point that it is devastating to the British Crown and to Israel that Epstein was definitely not approved for both groups. We know that. And they've had undue influence over our country, and they've been using these black dollar rings for control. So is the CIA, so is MI6. But this is a big deal. Some have said, oh, this is coming out because Trump didn't strike Iran, and so Israel's blackmailing him. No, this exonerates Trump and exposed the CIA, Mossad, MI6. So this is a huge, 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 huge deal. And you see the raid on Georgia, and you see all this other action. Trump's really getting traction. He's really taking action now. And he came out yesterday and said, yeah, see, it exonerates because it does. And it's all Democrats. It's so crazy. Don't forget, we posted reports. Well, there's like, yeah, there's 7 of us, 1 piece of pizza's coming. It's really great. It's really going to have a lot of fun with this piece of pizza. And it's the FBI files. That's kids. I mean, just do not let them distract away from that. This is so mega massive. And take this show tonight and share it on live feed. Alex Jones on X, the Rumble feed, the Alex Jones show.
So Alex Jones is alluding to Pizzagate, and they're being speculated that it might be mentioned in the Epstein files. People ordering pizza, actually ordering something horrific.
Force.com/show. Take these clips and share them. This broadcast belongs to you. The power of this broadcast all depends on you. So take action now. Their house of cards is coming down. They fought to suppress this. So Trump's acting like he doesn't want it out, so they pushed for it to come out. I was like, oh, that sounds crazy. But I got to say, they were right about that. I mean, this is just nuts. This is crazy. They are so dangerous right now, though. They're going to strike back. So if you're talking about what's their next move.
So Alex Jones dismissing the idea that this has happened because Trump didn't invade Iran. I thought Trump is implicated in the Epstein files. I thought there's some horrible accusations against him coming out. That's certainly what George Galloway was suggesting the other night on the mother of all talk shows. Let's listen to Afshin Rattansi. What does he have to say about the Epstein files?
Some years ago now, Jeffrey Epstein is dead. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell, there are reports she's in Paris. You maintain that it was your employer, Robert Maxwell, owner of the Daily Mirror. You say that he was an Israeli agent, and as was his daughter.
He was not my...
So Robert Maxwell, father of Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, boyfriend of Ghislaine Maxwell, partner, whatever.
employer. I would like to correct that.
Okay.
We worked together with him.
And you say that his daughter Ghislaine also, though, worked for Israel, and it was Robert Maxwell who introduced Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell way before the 1990s, as mainstream media is reporting.
Correct. Mr. Epstein was introduced to Ms. Maxwell probably sometime in the 80s. And Mr. Maxwell also thought he might be introducing a fellow to date his daughter. He tried to do a favor to his daughter, to find her a shidduch, as they say in Hebrew, a match.
Okay, and that didn't really quite work out. I suppose what the most alarming allegations that you've been making are that the entire Epstein operation was a honey trap operation to entrap politicians, policymakers, celebrities, people in the media eye, basically to become Israel's assets.
Correct. That it became basically an intelligence operation to entrap different politicians around the world.
Okay, a trap. Politicians around the world. That's not the only theory, by the way. There's a lot of pushback going on. I've seen on the BBC people suggesting, or even on LBC, suggesting that he was working for Russia, Putin. Let's hear that theory. It could be true. Here's Andrew Marr.
Let me begin tonight with something that I think is even more important,
Even more
extraordinary. Growing suspicion. Epstein had apparently limitless supplies of money. Where did it come from?
Russia.
He procured many young Russian girls. Why was that so easy for him? The files released show more than 1,000 documents which referred to Vladimir Putin, and 9,000 referring to Moscow. The FBI says that he was Putin's wealth manager. Epstein filed all of his messages. He filmed and taped powerful Western leaders in deeply compromising situations. Why? Doesn't it make you wonder at least about the possibility of a KGB operation big enough to ensnare former presidents and prime ministers and the leaders of some of the world's most powerful companies? I know, this all sounds impossibly sensational, conspiratorial, a James Bond villain plot in real life. But there is so much smoke billowing out of one of the most extraordinary establishment crises in my lifetime that it is well worth exploring whether there might be also a genuinely ominous backstory.
Oh, I really hope it's Russia. That's Andrew Marr bending over backwards to try and make this about Russia, to try and pin it somehow on Vladimir Putin. He can't seem to bring himself to mention the obvious, but it could be Russia. It could be Russia, couldn't it? Yeah, it might be. Some more coverage in the newspapers. The Daily Telegraph isn't accusing Russia. This is Mandelson leaked number 10 emails to Mossad, not the KGB. So Peter Mandelson, who's been implicated in all of this, he's out of a job and he leaked secrets. Isn't that treason? We used to have execution for people that committed treason. I don't believe in executing people, but that used to be one of the reasons you could get the death penalty in the UK was if you committed treason. What else do you call it if you're giving government secrets away to a foreign government? There's Imran Khan, and this is from Current Report, breaking new Epstein files show a private message alleging assassinations and coup funding to overthrow governments, including former Pakistani PM Imran Khan, who has been overthrown, hasn't he? He's in jail. He's in jail as we speak, and Khan poses a greater threat to peace than leaders including Erdogan, Khomeini, Xi, or Putin. Yeah, I wonder if any of these people really were a threat. Would they have been dealt with already? And Imran Khan has been dealt with. He was voted in. He was democratically elected, and I was there in Pakistan in 2018 when he won that election. And you know, I look back on it and I didn't realise at the time I knew it was significant, but I didn't realise the magnitude of the significance, the moment that he was finally elected to office in Pakistan, and then it was taken away from him, stolen from him, and he's in prison. Shall we hear from Jeremy Corbyn, a man who's mentioned in the Epstein files, not for any negative reason, but as an individual that they wanted to target, that they wanted to get rid of. They didn't want him as leader of the Labour Party. They didn't want him with one hand on the premiership of the UK. He was a few thousand votes in the right place away from being the greatest prime minister we never had. Here he is.
Do you think that, Peter Mandelson and Andrew, former Prince Andrew, do you think they should be telling what they know to congressional committees in the United States and, investigating authorities?
Well, yes, I do, because the offences were clearly committed, or most of them anyway, within the jurisdiction of the USA, but to various European capitals, including London. And so offences were committed within many jurisdictions. But I think it is perfectly reasonable that the US Congress would say they want to interview Andrew Mountbatten and Peter Mandelson. And I suspect the only way would be if they voluntarily went there to be interviewed. But there are questions to be asked. There are victims here. Gillian Godfrey took her own life. Others are in a desperate situation. They'll be scarred forever by the experience of the behaviour of Jeffrey Epstein. It's the victims we should be thinking about.
There he goes again, pronouncing the name. Jeffrey Epstein. Do you remember when people leapt on Corbyn for pronouncing his name in that way? Very silly. Very silly. The way they hounded Jeremy Corbyn. Let's listen to Max Blumenthal.
But I do want to get to these adjacencies that you mentioned at the top of your answer, because we've talked about before how Jeffrey Epstein would help the CIA relocate air transit fleet. And now all these references to MI6, to Mossad. Are we to take from this that he was like an independent contractor, free agent, willing to work with anyone? And if so, how do you think his activities to compromise powerful figures fit into that other work?
Well, I think he was, he might have seen himself as a freelancer, but as you can see within his power network, there was a very strong sympathy for Israel. He was a guy who went around, who had worn a Golani Brigade sweater. One of his closest friends was Ehud Barak, former head of Israeli military intelligence, former defense minister, former prime minister, most decorated soldier in Israel's history. And he was helping Barak learn how to get on boards by calling in favors for those he had helped while he was in government, which helps explain how the State Department.
By the way, that's everyone in government, Max. After everybody gets out of government, they figure out who they helped in government and then go try to get on their board.
Which shows why our government is so deeply corrupted.
Yes.
And it was interesting, you bring up the CIA, that Epstein mentioned Palantir early on at a point when he couldn't even spell it. Palantir's seed money came from the CIA through In-Q-Tel, and it did $1.4 billion in the last quarter. How does it do that? It does that through, and how does it do that when you have a kind of psychotic CEO who boasts in stockholder meetings about killing people, who boasts in public talks about his role in killing lots of people in the Gaza Strip?
Yeah, I think Andrew Marr's clearly onto something here. He must have been working for Russia. And one of the ways in which Epstein did what he did, apparently they rescued children from an earthquake in Turkey. And those children disappeared. They didn't rescue them and reunite them with their parents. They disappeared them. Unbelievable. Shall we listen to Jackson Hinkle?
According to the new files, Jeffrey Epstein was working with Mossad, the CIA, Peter Thiel, Bill Gates, and Ukrainian oligarchs to overthrow governments all across the world, including the overthrow of Khamenei in Iran, the overthrow of Assad in Syria, Imran Khan in Pakistan, President Putin, of course, in Russia, as well as Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. In fact, there were even emails with Peter Thiel where they were discussing a scale plan to overthrow and destabilize the governments of Iraq, Iran, Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, and Egypt. This guy had his fingerprints on absolutely everything. He was well connected, and very sadly, in some cases, he was actually successful in overthrowing some of these governments.
Yeah, some of those are gone already, haven't they? Muammar Gaddafi's gone, Bashar al-Assad's gone. Any others that we could mention?
Now you got to ask the question, why is it that no one in the mainstream media is talking about this angle of the files? I mean, they're obviously forced to talk about the files themselves and the salacious story, but they failed to mention the political aspect to this and how all of the leaders we were taught to believe are evil were actually being targeted by the most evil man on the face of the planet.
Yeah, even Tommy Robinson's name has come up in the leaks, and they're joking about him being easily bought because, of course, he receives funding from certain groups.
This isn't transparency, it's a cover-up, and here's how it works. They show you flight logs, emails, PG-rated photos, fragments of conversations that have been stripped of the meat. A few big names get thrown under the bus. It's just enough to feel disturbing, but never enough to prove anything about the real players. That's what you'll see in this massive document dump. What you won't see is context. You won't see corroboration, and you definitely won't see accountability, because that's not the point. This is a weaponized DOJ strategy of controlled confusion, and it's working perfectly. You see, they don't protect powerful people by erasing evidence. They protect them by releasing it slowly, by delaying key documents, by over-redacting names, and by letting the public fight over the scraps if we're not too distracted by the latest military invasion of a third world country or a major US city. Chaos becomes their cover. The goal isn't to reveal the truth, it's to survive it. So read the files, but don't confuse access with justice, because sometimes the most effective...
Yeah, how much of this are we actually seeing on the millions of pages that have been released? How much of it is redacted? You know, when you look on and the name is blacked out and you can't make out who is being accused of what. Here's a bit of an older clip.
Let's all take a trip down memory lane.
This is crazy.
The 1990s, Benjamin Netanyahu, Bill Clinton, and Monica Lewinsky. Stick around for this one.
Benjamin Netanyahu, he's been on the scene since the 90s. If I'm correct, his name is not mentioned in the Epstein files. But of course, Ehud Barak is. The former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak is heavily mentioned, and Netanyahu is not.
So in a scandal that has been largely lost to contemporary memory, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was alleged to have blackmailed then-President Bill Clinton by revealing to him that Israel had collected tapes of phone sex calls between the 42nd president and White House intern Monica Lewinsky. The story is worth revisiting amid allegations that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in a long-running Israeli blackmail operation of his own. So Clinton met with Netanyahu in the Oval Office in February 1997. Subsequently, according to testimony Lewinsky gave to the special counsel's office, Clinton's secretary Betty Curry reached out to Lewinsky to invite her to an Oval Office meeting, telling her Clinton, quote, had something important to tell her, unquote. It would turn out to be their final sexual encounter, but Clinton also used the opportunity to tell her that a, quote, foreign embassy had tapped his phone and recorded their conversation, Lewinsky said. Clinton did not specify which embassy, though the meeting with Lewinsky came the month after his meeting with Netanyahu. The special prosecutor's report was far more concerned with Lewinsky's claim of the sexual encounter that day because it contradicted Clinton's claim that they had had only one encounter that year than they were with the fact that a foreign government was spying on the president and letting him know about it. The prosecutor was also interested in Clinton's response, namely that he proposed cover stories. These are cover stories that the two could employ if they were confronted with the tapes. Clinton suggested the pair say they knew they were under surveillance and the phone sex was a, quote, put on for whoever was listening. It's an awfully flimsy idea, but look, he was guilty. The man did not have much to work with. Now in April, Netanyahu and Clinton met again for a, quote, private visit. On a Saturday then in May 1997, Clinton again had Curry invite Lewinsky to the White House. During that visit, he broke up with her, Lewinsky testified. The next fall, so this is fall of 1998, Clinton hosted Netanyahu and Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat for a summit in Wye River, Maryland. Toward the end of the summit, at 7 a.m., after a long night of final negotiations and handshakes, Netanyahu approached Clinton privately to demand the release of convicted Israeli spy Jonathan Pollard, long a cause célèbre of the Israeli far right. That's according to reporting at the time from the New York Times. Now, Netanyahu brought up the sex tapes in the context of the Pollard demand, according to subsequent reporting by Washington Examiner editor Daniel Harper in his book, Clinton, Inc., The Audacious Rebuilding of a Political Machine. He writes, quote, not wanting to directly threaten the powerful American president, a crucial Israeli ally, Clinton was told that the Israeli government had thrown the tapes away, but the very mention of them was enough to constitute a form of blackmail, Halpern reported. The talks almost broke down as CIA Chief George Tenet told Clinton he would resign on the spot if Clinton agreed to the terms. So instead, Clinton agreed to, quote, review Pollard's case. He did not release him. Pollard was eventually freed in 2015 under the Obama administration. Now, on the last day of his first term, Trump pardoned Pollard's handler. Back in Israel, Pollard is now an outspoken supporter of extremist National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, and has called for the full ethnic cleansing of Gaza. I don't know, Emily, what do you think? What did Netanyahu tell Bill Clinton?
I'm so curious.
There's another foreign embassy that this could be?
Yeah. Netanyahu and Bill Clinton, they both seem to have been around forever, but Bill Clinton looks a lot more rough for his age, doesn't he? Have you seen him lately? He looks absolutely atrocious. But Netanyahu somehow still seems quite presentable. I don't know how he does it. He must sleep well at night. Richard Bergen, this is a Labour MP in the House of Commons. And we're back on the topic of Mandelson, the British MP that was linked to Epstein.
Serious debate, we need full honesty. As I alluded to before, one of the main reasons that Peter Mandelson was let off the hook and eased into one of the most important offices he could be given by the Prime Minister was because of his role in internal Labour Party factional affairs. And that is just completely wrong. I mean, I'll quote Peter Mandelson, who said, I work every single day in some small way to bring forward the end of his term in office, referring, of course, to the Right Honourable member for Islington North. And that comment was made whilst he was leader of the Labour Party, and Lord Mandelson was a Labour Party member. And I would say that that is a reason. He was so grateful for the job that Peter Mandelson did, kicking the left again and again in the Labour Party, that they turned... I will give way shortly. I think the Prime Minister would be really delighted if I did give way, because I'm trying to come to an important point. So the point I'm making is that the reward for that factional role that he boasted about, that he revelled in, the reward for that was that a blind eye was turned to the fact that the Prime Minister knew of the relationship between Peter Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein. The reality is, and I will give way in a second, the reality is that Peter Mandelson wouldn't have made it onto a panel of local election candidates in the Labour Party. Yet he wouldn't have made it into the Parliamentary Labour Party as a candidate for the general election. Yet, because of his factional role and his relationship with the super rich that quite frankly stinks, he was eased into the position of ambassador to the United States of America. And that's the truth, whether or not people choose to admit it, and I will give way.
You do get such infighting within political parties. The left wing and the right wing of the Labour Party are often tearing each other apart. And of course, Jeremy Corbyn was considered the far left wing of the party, and his name was mentioned in the files as someone that they wanted to get rid of. Shall we listen to the Young Turks? Here we go.
So let's get to some of the headlines that were featured over at Dropsite News, because they poured over the Ehud Barak emails, to Epstein, which of course were leaked as part of a hack. They also reported on the various documents and emails that were released by both Democrats and Republicans in the House Oversight Committee. So with that in mind, I mean, this is based on hard evidence. They were able to report the following stories. Epstein helped broker an Israeli security agreement with Mongolia. Interesting. Epstein helped Israel build a back channel to Russia during the Syrian civil war. That's not all. Epstein helped Israel sell a surveillance state to the Ivory Coast.
Look, I've made it clear what I think of this, and I've made it clear that the mental gymnastics of BBC, LBC, trying to pin it somehow on Putin just won't do. But it is uncomfortable when someone from your team, put it that way, is implicated in something like this. So there's people on the left, there's people on the right. Noam Chomsky, who is a very old man now and in no position to defend himself or explain himself. He has been implicated in emails, and he previously said that he only went to Jeffrey Epstein for financial advice. It would seem that Noam Chomsky actually had a close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And if you're partisan and you're someone on the left, you may feel very uncomfortable about that. Equally, a lot of people on the left actually fell out of love with Noam Chomsky in recent years. Some people accuse him of being a Trotskyite. There's a lot of left-wing conflict, whether you're a Trotskyite or a Stalinist, or well, no one calls themselves either of those terms. They are terms of abuse that are thrown around. But look, even people that we have supported. And look, personally, I don't like Noam Chomsky anymore for certain things that he's said. But I don't want to be one of these hypocrites that just dismisses people because now their name's mentioned, or they say, oh, I knew it all along. A lot of things he used to say, I agree with. I felt very uncomfortable about the way he described certain things during the pandemic. And that was enough for me to be put off Noam Chomsky. But he was right about many things, and he used to make a great case for Palestine. But was he one of these guys that went so far and no further? And is there a reason why he never fully committed himself to certain stances? Flashbang Tess is saying, are we chatting about the Epstein files? Yes, we are. I guess we have to. It's the main news. And this used to be one of those topics that you kind of had to talk in code about. I'm still mincing my words here a little bit. I'm not saying exactly what I want to say due to the algorithm and the censorship. But I hope you're all reading clearly between the lines. Back to Noam Chomsky, someone posted on Twitter, when he said that NATO were a threat to Russia, I knew he was on the wrong side of history. Well, I agree with him about that. I agree with him on many things, but unfortunately, it would seem he had a close relationship with Jeffrey. There shall we get his picture on the screen for you? This is Chomsky. Vijay Prashad posted, my friendship with Chomsky goes back decades, but reading his friendly correspondence with Jeffrey Epstein made me shudder. I know that Noam cannot defend himself, but in many ways the emails speak for themselves. Yeah. Very disappointing. But then again, this is reality, isn't it? You should never build someone up to be more than human. Influential people in positions of power being compromised. And there's emails tear to shreds Andrew's Newsnight claim of breaking off all contact with Epstein. Yeah, Andrew Mountbatten, as we have to call him now. No longer a royal. He was very dismissive and said, oh, well, yeah, he was a friend, but no, I wouldn't say a good friend. Yeah, the royal who claimed he couldn't sweat. What a load of nonsense. It's all unravelling. It's going to be quite ugly. I think things are going to get ugly now. The kickback to what has been revealed and the agenda behind it. They are already in tatters. The propaganda war has already been won. But the kickback, what do they call it? The death pangs, the death rattle when a wounded animal is writhing in agony and gasping for its last breath. That's when it may become the most violent. So, yeah, expect anything. Flashbang is saying, saw that on the news today. Yeah, it's all over the news today, isn't it? All over the mainstream news. Give your conspiracy theorist friend a big hug today, because years ago they would have been the only ones talking about this. And I'll mention at this juncture Scott Dawson, the brother of Ryan Dawson, mentioning, my brother is mentioned in the Epstein files 11 times. Not in a bad way. They're all wondering who he is and how he knows everything they're doing. They got him banned on everything, even PayPal and MySpace. Oh my God, MySpace, remember that? But he never quit going after them. Over 20 years, he named names and it was all true. Yeah, Ryan Dawson, a great American journalist, Native American heritage, and he went to live in Japan. And I used to watch him on YouTube years ago, and of course he got banned. I hope we're not chastised for even mentioning his name, but look, he's been banned on everything from PayPal to MySpace, and he's been proven true. How many people that were on the right track years ago have now been vindicated? That's the word, isn't it? Vindication, when you're proven right. And this is one of those things that you probably love to be wrong about. No one wants to believe that celebrities and influential people are all compromised because they've been involved in this sort of thing on an island. But this is the reality. I saw Bill Gates denying that he'd ever been to the island. He still denies that he went to Epstein Island, but he was certainly good friends with Epstein and went for dinners with him and had to have antibiotics provided for his wife surreptitiously because he feared he had contracted something. Flashbang is saying 3 cases on the files: Mandelson, Bill Gates, and now known as Andrew, not a royal anymore. Yeah, that's right. Andrew Mountbatten. He always came across as a bit of a weird guy. Andrew Mountbatten. Here's sad news if you're from United Arab Emirates or you've got any affinity with the UAE, the Epstein files show that the Kaaba cloth, the cube, the black cube in Mecca, around which the faithful circumambulate during the Hajj, cloth pieces from Mecca shipped to him via the UAE. So the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, sent the holy cloth from the Kaaba to Jeffrey Epstein. Why? As a bit of a souvenir? How very sad. And this is the reality. We boycott certain countries or a certain country. If you're a hardcore supporter, I'm sure you are on board with the boycott and the divestment and the sanctions. But shouldn't we be boycotting and divesting from a state like this? A state that also has blood on its hands in Sudan. Flash is saying, did you watch BBC News today? Well, I don't have a TV license, so I can't watch BBC News, but I mean, I've sifted through a few clips. What did they say on BBC Flashbang? I'm guessing they're trying to pin this on Russia. How pathetic. Are these people not embarrassed to talk like that? Oh yeah, must have been Russia. And if you're, I mean, a lot of people of the older generation who perhaps only have a TV and don't go online and go on X and go on the other platforms where you've got arguments from both sides or many sides being shared. If you only watch the BBC, or ITV, you'll just lap it up and say, yeah, oh, I heard he was working for the KGB. I heard he was working for Russia. Wake up. Wake up. But we can't. Is there not hard evidence? How much evidence would you need? How much would it take to convince you that he was doing what Ghislaine Maxwell's father was doing and what Ghislaine Maxwell was doing? I don't know. Some people, it's like they don't want to see the truth of the situation. Anyway, I know it's a bit of a depressing subject, but we have to address it. And Haroon, always good value for a comment. Kaaba cloth, the kiswa, 3 pieces were given to Epstein as Arabic art, the files show. Yeah, Arabic art. Interesting. Isn't it designed by Egypt? Am I correct about that? About the kiswa? Does it not always come from Egypt whenever they renew it? I'm not sure how often it gets renewed. But the UAE managed to send it to Epstein as a souvenir of Arabic art. Yeah, you wouldn't look, there's no perfect Muslim government out there at the moment, but you wouldn't catch certain governments being involved in something like that. I mean, it's embarrassing, isn't it? Sent a gift to Jeffrey Epstein. All right, folks, it's always a pleasure to speak to you, even if it's on a depressing topic. Note down the number because you're always welcome to send a voice note if you've got any commentary, any comment to make, and I will play it out. If not on this live stream, perhaps on another one, as a way to sort of share views from our community. Freedom of speech, and you have the privilege of speaking freely and speaking anonymously. You don't have to say who you are. I'm not going to do anything with your number or details other than express your views. And if you disagree with me, if you think I'm talking nonsense, if you think that maybe Epstein was working for Russia, well, you're wrong, but you're welcome. Always welcome. All right, folks, it's been Lessons for Life, co-streaming with Sarah Dardasha. Make sure that you subscribe to both. And we've got videos from Speaker's Corner dropping this week, so look out for that. Long form content coming soon. It's been Lessons for Life, and Sarah Dardasha will do it all again soon. We were here, we are gone. Laters. Thank you very much, folks. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.